Hello, hello, peace family. Thanks for joining us for another episode. And since you're here, do me a favor and share this out on your network right now. Let's create some vibes, get some engagement going on. You know, we do it for the people, so we need you to share this out on your network. It's another episode of Seven Generations Black. Yes, your favorite podcast that addresses, it talks about the power to equip, inform, and clear your lens and present you with a new perspective. Now, this is starring my guy, Theo E.J. Wilson, H. Soul, LETHOL, Jice Johnson, and I'm your host, Shay J. We are Seven Generations Black. You're tuned into season 2, so we're not new to this, but we need to make sure the people that don't know about us hear about us. So go ahead, do us a favor. Go over to CTN Media on YouTube, subscribe, like, and share. We're changing the narrative, and we're doing it with you. And remember, every time you donate on this platform, you're donating to independent Black media. So we thank you in advance. Today's topic, like a lot of topics, will trigger you. So I'm going to hit you with the red pill alert. It's time for an alert. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. This is your opportunity to stop listening and tune out now. If you do, well, the story ends. And you wake up in your bed and believe whatever it is you want to believe. However, if you take this 7 generations red pill, you stay here with us in a liberatory discussion, and we show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Haha, is always yours. Welcome to 7 Generations Black. We appreciate you guys tuning in. And for those of you who don't know about my amazing panel, let me introduce them one more time. It's my guy from Shop Talk Live, Mr. Theo E.J. Wilson. He's also the piano man, so you might get a little selection at any point in time. My guy from the Honorable Protector Initiative, the one and only LETHOL T-shirt gang. We see you. What is that one?
Inspire others.
Who inspire others. Now that's leadership. All right, I see you. My guy from the Righteous Rage Institute, the one and only H Soul. And my partner in purpose, the CBO of the Black Business Initiative, Miss Jice Johnson.
Yay.
What's up, y'all? What's up?
What's up?
We're gonna get into it. I don't think we should prolong any longer. This discussion, it's a part 2. That's how good it got last week. It's a part 2. So if you tuned in last week, you know we've been talking about leadership, and we're just gonna get into the part 2 of it. So as we discussed this week, we're talking about the responsibility of leadership. And in part 2, we're really talking about false prophets and kind of jumping into that a little bit more. Now, we know that leadership can be a heavy burden to bear. And oftentimes, we also know that leadership is misused for personal gain, to amplify the voice, and maybe not the voice of the people, and maybe not the best interest of the people as well. Now, how do we identify or upput the false prophets amongst us? How do we heal? Do we counsel each other out? We know about counsel culture. We know about that. Do we turn a blind eye? So join us, 7 Generations Black, as we really take a look at the roles and responsibility of leadership. And we know that this at any time may trigger you, so we had the red pill alert. You guys, let's jump into this. Last week was an amazing conversation. I think we really touched on so many things with leadership and the responsibility of leadership. A lot of engagement. So we do want to tell our audience, please engage with us. This conversation is for you, and we want to do it with you. So join us, 7 Generations.
Sorry.
Who did that to me? Who did it? Raise your hand. Look, they pointed at you. That's child. So as we talk about responsibility of leadership, I just want to get in and I really want to hit it off with my guy that always comes with so much wisdom. I just want to talk about what is false prophets when it comes to leadership. What does that mean? What does that represent? You know, when we look at leadership right now, we don't really identify, I think, as a culture with having one significant leader in the Black culture. We're not identifying with one person. They said it for the past 30 years to 40 years. There's been no one to really step in that role of leadership. But there's been a lot of people that we have looked at and said, maybe you're a false prophet and maybe this isn't about the people. LETHOL, when we talk about what that looks like right now and why there hasn't been a strong leader in the last 30, 40 years, you know, what's the response to that? And what is really the role that we're looking for in leadership versus the false prophets?
Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, let's get right into this. So for those of us who are listening and watching right now, for the past couple of months, we've been having behind the scene conversations about this, and they were really sparked by, this new sort of organization that came up, right? And as I thought about it over the past couple of months, and I actually thought about it today, I was fired up and ready to just lambast, right? Just go real hard.
Yeah.
Because it really irritates me because, I think that leaders have to understand that they have a responsibility, right? Ability to respond, right? In a way that protects as best as they can the lives of those who have decided to follow them. Not
Yeah.
just their lives, but their interests, right? And they have to be willing to be held accountable to how they respond, right? How they execute their ability to respond, right? You got to be willing to be held accountable. You have to be able to speak to why you're doing what you're doing in an intelligent and articulate sort of manner for your followers, right? Because they're putting trust in you. And that's something that we should never take lightly, right? But as I thought about it some more, and I went and I fell back on looking up the brother minister Malcolm X and some of the things that he said, right? And it was amazing to me because I've always focused on that firebrand that we're so familiar with when it comes to brother minister Malcolm X, right?
Yeah.
So I want to recite something that I came across, right? There's two particular quotes of his that I think helped change my mind, right? The first one is, "Don't be in a hurry to condemn others because someone doesn't do what you do or think as you think or act as fast as you do. Remember, there was a time when you didn't know what you know today."
That's good.
The second piece is, "We need more light about each other." I'm speaking about us as Black people, right?
Yeah.
Because light creates understanding, understanding creates love, love creates patience, and patience leads to unity. And there is nothing more than we need as a people than unity right now, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm holding myself accountable for the way that I was thinking before, and I'm choosing to execute my ability to respond in a different direction, which is why I'm wearing this T-shirt today, Inspire Others.
Man, Lethal, you are really hitting on the whole reason we're here for 7 generations. It's all about perspective and then allowing ourselves to unlearn, to relearn, to really, put our community in a better space instead of just being for ourselves. Thank you for that. That's huge. That's the whole concept of what we're looking at, because I think we can always point out, the things that we disagree on, but the similarity aspect for the greater good is often lost. Theo, when you hear what Lethal's saying and when you address why there hasn't been, someone that we all say, this is our leader, why is that? And are we at a time where they're saying we're now, as a Black community, we're getting to a place where the old Black leaders are waiting on the revolution and the individuals are saying no more. They're moving on, they're moving past it, and they're becoming more like the Asian community. They don't need leadership. They're like, we're gonna be individuals and do what we need to do. How do you respond to that?
I think that the Black community is trust traumatized. There's been so many leaders that have come up and we lent all this faith, and then that just led to an empty return on our investment. You feel me? Like, it's like you can't get disappointed but so many times before you just throw in the towel. And if following people ended up making you disappointed, then there's not going to be no followership for a Black leader. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. That's very important. And the fact that everybody who's ever stepped in the spotlight got human foibles and follies and shortcomings and whatnot, you feel me? And even the freaking brothers and sisters who we think, well, no, brothers specifically, who we call our real prophets, they were killed. Had they lived long enough, would they be on the same pedestal? You feel me? Like, had Dr. King lived long enough to have all of his affairs exposed, you know what I'm saying? And he just kind of faded into oblivion, and he was like still alive but hella old today. Would he still occupy the same mantle, the same as Malcolm X, right? And so first of all, we need to ask where the followership is when we ask where the leaders are. And the final thing I'll say about this is that a lot of people have been false prophets because there's the shine element. You see what I'm saying? Where like you get all the light, but then like heavy is the head that wears the crown. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of people ain't ready for that. So they jockey for the spotlight. I'm the one, the chosen one, right? But that comes with a level of responsibility, congruency, and inner development. And it's worse because the eyes of the world is on you Dr. King wasn't a leader in the mass media age. You see what I'm saying? Right. So there weren't no DMs, or text messages, a hidden camera video you could pull up. Now you would have to be on a whole different level morally to even take that throne. You know what I'm saying? And then be ready to die for it and be very depressed for it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what comes with it. Marcus Garvey was suicidal. You know what I'm saying? Like Malcolm X was living in like a low level state of panic after they bombed his house for the second time. You know what I mean? So these are things you got to be wary of, not just people who want to shine.
Man, that's good. Jice, I see you moving. I know what that move looks like. Go ahead and jump in there, sis.
No, I think it's interesting because, to Letho's point, the conversation around leadership in general was, kind of sparked, I think, by a mixture of our observation and our own experiences, and also a conversation that I think we needed to have, and we need to have more of inside of our communities, right? And so I think recognizing like the different aspects, right? So, we were just kind of talking about the responsibility and the evolution of a leader last week. And now this week, looking at, as we're calling it, like a false prophet and the idea of misleadership versus evolving as a person and as a leader, right?
Oh, good point.
Two different sides. And so one of the things that was said last week, and I think it was H, but correct me if I'm wrong, but, just kind of talking about leadership emerging, right? Like oftentimes you see people who are on the leadership, who are considered leaders or who are on the forefront, and they have emerged based off of their works and what they were doing. I think it's vastly different from someone who is purposely seeking the limelight and seeking the stage, and in particular using it to misguide, mislead our people and or boost themselves, right? And they're looking at it from their own personal or for their own personal gain. And so I don't profess to know how we automatically distinguish those two, but I do think that there's a difference between people who have naturally emerged as leaders and then people who are seeking the limelight, and the accountability and the difference in those two. Like one is you look up and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, people are looking to me or people are listening to my voice. And what does that mean, right? And how do I respond accordingly? And then the other side of that is I am out here trying to amplify my voice. I want people to hear what I have to say. I believe I have something to say, and I'm going to use that leverage, or I'm going to use this stage, or I'm going to use this platform to make sure that my personal, whether it's my ego, whether it's my personal pocketbook, whether it's my family legacy or whatever, is amplified in that space.
Oh, Jice, you hit on something big, and I think that really was a trigger for a lot of people hearing that misleadership versus evolving as a person.
That's a word.
There are two different things. That is a great point. When we talk about false prophets, one of the number one things they say is follow the profit line, follow the money, follow the hearts of who it connects to. When you talk about leadership, most leaders are really listening to the people that are misrepresented, that don't get to use their voice. When you have a prophet, they're usually tied into somebody that already has power. Leaders are usually people that are powerless. When we look at that correlation, so what do you really think in the aspect of right now today, and the people that are emerging as leaders, or the people that we are saying they're not leaders because they may not be leading for the people, and they may just be leading out of selfish spaces?
Well, I think leadership is like children, in the sense that the type of children you have reflects what type of parent you are, right? They tell the truth of who you are as a parent. You can be out in community saying all you want, but when your kids turn up and they all, wilding out then and, disrespectful, children reveal what type of parent you really are.
It's good.
I think our leadership today is also a reflection of what type of people we are as a community. Selfish leadership is based upon the fact that we are as a as a culture are really immersed in selfishness. And I had the great benefit of going to speak to an elder in our community, Mr. Freeman, who used to own the He-Man bookstore over at
We love him.
And he said this word here, that Black leadership does not exist now because Black people don't want to sacrifice in order to, they don't see passing the baton anymore, right? They don't see 7 generations down. They are trying to get on now. They're trying to, it's all about them. It's not about their children. It's not about their grandchildren. And that simply was not the way that leadership was handled when you're talking about a Malcolm, or you're talking about a Martin, or you're talking about a Garvey. These were people that specifically had inside of their mind that one day, as Donny Hathaway saying, one day we'll all be free. Whereas now we're living in a culture where people are like, yo, if I could just reach P. Diddy status, if I could just reach Kanye status, if I could get me and my crew to that level, then it's all good. And with that type of mentality that permeates the culture, leaders are not produced outside of the people that produce them. They are part and parcel of that. And so leaders don't drop down from heaven, despite what the Bible may seem to indicate.
Now, whose job is it when we talk about that? Because we're looking at we do have some young people right now that are in positions to lead. And I'm looking at these people, a lot of people I interview and I talk to them, I don't see who's pouring into these young people. I don't see who's giving them any systems. I don't see who's saying this is how you lead and this is how you lead with the people in mind. Whose responsibility is that? Where does that come from?
Let me back that up, because I think we see a lot of people making some really strong attempts to pour into the kids. So I don't want it to seem like no one is doing that. I think, though, that there are a lot of overpowering messages and a lot of conflicting messages. Like, we don't have strong, consistent messages in the community, because we know a lot of folks who are out here doing everything they have to try to, pull something together, right? But we also know from working with youth, it's one thing when you get one message out in the streets, another message when you come home, messaging and propaganda on TV, they're listening to their friends. And quite frankly, one of the things, because I think, I'm gonna circle back around to this, but I think this is really important when I think about leadership, and I keep hearing the same phrase over and over, that we don't need leaders in our community. And I just I completely disagree with that. I think we do need strong leadership and strong leaders in our community. However, leadership traits and leadership skills, there are certain traits and skills that can be attributed to leadership, and those should be taught as values to everyone. And then you will still have those who are exemplifying that, and those who can command influence and a presence that are going to stand and rise above inside of a crowd. And it's not because they're better than, it's because they have a skill or the skin or the vision or the purpose or the whatever in order for us to move forward. So when I'm hearing all of that, like, I can't hear that we're not out here doing the work. I think that we're not out here strategically doing the work. I think we're not out here working together. And I think there are still people amongst us who are using our youth, who are using our people, who are using our struggle for their own personal profit and gain. And it's not that we shouldn't profit, but I also think that we're not looking at what success actually is. So we see success as being a Jay-Z or a Kanye or, whoever else was mentioned. And that is a level of success, but it's not what counts as success. So if we don't begin to change that narrative, then we have kids who are striving and adults who are striving for things at all costs against the whole, right? This is what it means to go off code when it's about you versus about the group.
Right.
Yeah, let me on that.
Yo. Share that out on your network. Thank you, guys. We see this. A lot of people are tuning in and say, great conversation. Share this out on your network. It's about 7 generations and really getting a mindset switch in our community. I hear a lot of things that really start with us getting on code as a community. Go ahead, Theo.
Yeah, I was going to say, success. Let's get into the semantics of it. A lot of people don't understand the difference between success and greatness. Success,
come on now.
And greatness is what you do for others. You see what I'm saying?
Now.
And so what happens is we had a value shift after the civil rights movement. Before integration, the Black church and the community leadership was a sovereign entity, and it set the cultural code for us to be on. Once we got integrated, we got inundated with the literal capitalist, consumerist ideals of success. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And therefore, we went for tokenism, and success got defined as being a somebody in the global system of white supremacy, i.e. the American culture, being, an athlete, being, and not to say athletes haven't always existed, but being a millionaire versus being a mountain. You see what I'm saying? Versus somebody who's actually contributing. And when we integrated, the goal line got fuzzy, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what is the goal line? Because if the goal line looks like complete integration into the American dream, well, then Jay-Z does look like greatness. And Diddy do look like greatness. You feel me? However, if we see that there is no freaking win for one millionaire, you know what I'm saying? Jay-Z said it best. What you eat don't make me shit. You know what I'm saying? So if that don't translate to the hood, then we see that this person just went for self. And now that we've seen success, we realize how much we need greatness. Somebody to give beyond themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
That's good.
Y'all killing it.
Let me touch on
Jice, you can come on late anytime you want to. And Theo, you keep coming on anytime you want to. Because y'all are bringing the word Asama Lahaya on all that.
The seventh generation Black conversation does take place. And this is a live conversation, and we're really trying to get to the mindset shift of how do we think out for our 7 generations Black.
Lethal has
Shay, real quick, Shay. Real quick, Shay. It was two things that two words that were mentioned, right? By I forgot who, right? Sacrifice and standards, right? We have some low ass standards as a people. We have some low standards, right? And I understand why
by this election.
Right, I understand why we do, right? Because we are in a state of being trust traumatized, right? And there is a trust deficit, right? Amongst ourselves, intrally, and with the larger, greater picture society, interwise, right? Understood all of that, right? But let me give you an example of what I say we have low standards, right? A brother or sister ends up being judged and executed out here in these streets by the state, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll hoop and holler and praise the goodness, right, for an indictment. But an indictment is not a conviction.
So
and then when we do get a conviction, it's usually less than 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? It's like 6.5 years, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll hoop and holler for that when we know that it probably should have been 25 years to life. You understand what I'm saying? That's what I mean by an example when I say that we need to raise our standards, right? And sacrifice, right?
Absolutely.
We're not going to achieve freedom, right? Mm-hmm. If we don't sacrifice. Understand that, right?
Yeah.
Jay-Z, P. Diddy, all those individuals, right? Oprah, fuck Obama, all of them. Every last one of them. No, just hear me out. Every last one of them, right? They are not free. Understand what I'm saying to you. They are not free. And if you understand the concept, right, of meritorious manumission, you know what I'm saying. They are not free. Their freedom it's an illusion. They're not free-ish, right? Right? Because ish means to be like, right? Be like independent of, right? Which is what the word free means, right? And dumb dominion, right? So to have independent dominion over yourself, right? They don't have that. Because at any given point in time, right, the concept of meritorious manumission, right, can be snatched from them.
Mm-hmm.
Can somebody Google meritorious manumission for me while we're at it and post it so that I can?
I would love so much. Like, Google it and put it in the chat for everybody, please.
Google and put it in the chat.
I think I can break it down simply. It's basically the payment that you get for being a good Negro.
Yes.
That's just basically what meritorious manumissions was, a way to de-incentivize slave revolts, ultimately. Okay. Like, if you snitch on somebody who was about to start a revolt, meritorious manumission said, damn it, then you get your freedom when we catch this bad Negro. See what I mean? And so you become somebody who is a token. And there's a lot of like tokenism and false profiting. A lot of the stuff that really leads us down the wrong path comes from our lack of self-love. You feel me? Like, as a people. One of my elders said, whenever you have poverty, you will always have turncoats and sellouts. Poverty, in and of itself, is the generator of those who establish in the back, because hunger's a bitch. Hunger's crazy. Hunger will make you do shit. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I understand that, you know, that's one of those things that we wrestle against all the times. You see, look at Lacey.
I love you, Lacey. Come through the mouth.
Right. It's so
that's a beautiful word, Lethal. And we need to start building a 7-gen. No, I know it's a beautiful word for you to bring in a 7-gen dictionary up in this mug, because that's a beautiful word that holds lots of context. Thank you for that explanation, Theo.
Absolutely.
No problem. I guess I'm done. Go ahead.
So my question is, no, you guys some great things, Theo. You're hilarious. You guys are saying some great things. And as we look at that makeup, we talk about, we know what it's not, and we know when we don't have, leaders that have our people at the heart. I want to answer one of our audience questions, which is anyone truly free? And then as we go into is anyone truly free, what makes a legitimate leader? Like, what are we looking for in these legitimate leaders and prophets? Because we can always talk about what we see that we don't like, but now we need to talk about what is it that we are looking for in order to build up our next leaders.
Perfection.
Right.
I think someone already pointed out that it's not perfection.
It's never going to be perfection.
People are looking for perfection. Listen, we act like Black people didn't know what was going on with MLK. People knew what was going on with MLK. The women in the church knew what was going on with MLK. Other Black leaders knew what was going on with MLK. The question becomes, is outing him and pulling him down more important than us getting free? And now, for 10 likes, people will pull your ish out and talk about, we got to do this, and you're not perfect, so let me go ahead and get contact TMZ on you. So we don't have the dedication. I think Jice said it, or Theo said it. There is an we have now entered into the extreme levels of a lack of self-love. We have astronomical suicide rates in the Black community, where that didn't exist before. That did not exist on the levels that it existed before. We have mass levels of us shooting and killing each other on levels that just didn't exist before. It just didn't. So until we rectify that, then the type of leader that we're going to choose is going to be predicated on the programming that we've been given to that's been given to us by our masters, and that is what's at issue.
To that point, that's exactly where meritorious manumissions comes in. Like, what when you're out for your own gain, you take on movie roles and you allow for TV shows, like you actively participate.
But we don't see the Black people that turn those movie roles down either, though, Jice. That's the thing about it. There are Black people who have passed on many of roles.
Like Denzel.
Denzel has talked about that.
Yes.
Will and Chadwick passed on some shit.
That's right.
Yeah.
They passed
Right.
on.
Well,
on shit.
but that's my
Chadwick
point, right? So, and so one, it says that you can pass on those things because you can hold yourself to a standard and a level of excellence in which you would refuse to just, denigrate your community, right? And you can still have success. The other side of that is that because we don't have that happening in mass, we still have these white writers who are putting out this bullshit that defines what it looks like to be Black and have any validity. And our children pick that up. And as what I think we talk a lot about the youth, but we have a lot of adults that are adults in age and that have not matured in their thinking process or in their thought process. And we literally see that all the time. You have these grown ass people who you look at and be like, wait, I'm sorry, are we still in high school? Like, what are we doing here? And so I'm saying youth and adult, but really it's this it's a programming and a messaging that continues to get put in front of us that we're not turning down, that we're not turning away. We're not telling them we don't like this this messaging and what this looks like, right? And so we keep saying that our value systems have changed, but it's what is being pumped into us continuously that is changing those values.
So Shay, to the point about the question, rather, right? Is anyone truly free? The answer has to be no, right? The reason why the answer has to be no is because we're not at peace, right? And you can't separate peace from freedom, right? Because you can't truly be at peace unless you are free. And we all know, right, just from our own eyes, we're not at peace. We're in disarray, right? And we're getting it from all factions, from all sides of life, right? Whether it be from the social side, whether it be economically, whether it be spiritually, whether it be educationally, it just doesn't matter, right? We're getting it, okay? And so we're not at peace. And so to the question that was asked from one of our viewers, no one is free. I'm not free. As much as I may think I am and want to be, I can't be free. Well, let me rephrase it. I can be free in my own little sphere.
Right.
But I, we, and us and our, I use those interchangeably. They're the same to me, right? So if my people aren't free, I'm not free. So if I'm free and not at peace, then I'm not at peace.
Yeah.
Yo, Lethal, check it. So that means that we got to actually have a stronger definition of what the hell freedom is, please.
Boom. And that brings there's a difference between freedom and liberation.
Because check it out. If you study any success science, this is what's so important about us. You need to study success science. The people who have actually figured out how to, actually manifest things, whether it was building companies or pulling themselves out of a dark place. And success science always begins with the fucking vision. You have to know where you're going. You feel me? Like, you have to have a fucking goal line. You have to have the target defined, and then you shoot at it. And then you figure out how close you're getting. See what I'm saying? And I think that one of the hardest things for us, I say this basically every week, no one's defined freedom for us. We only know what slavery looks like. You feel me? Like, we only know what various forms of oppression, various forms of chains, various forms of denigration look like. So we can spot that. Our reticulated activated system in our brain, which spots patterns, can recognize patterns of oppression, patterns of slavery. We have not figured out how to actually recognize patterns of freedom. What the fuck does that look like? And how do we get there step by step? Is anyone at all free? Well, okay, so maybe no one's all the way free, but there's motherfuckers freer than us. Freer, okay? Freer. What are they doing right now? Are they on podcasts talking about how free they're not? You feel me? Or are they doing free shit? What are they doing? Like, what is their daily routine like? Like, how did they get there? What did their ancestors do to set them up so that they could be free, to have some level of peace, have some level of sovereignty and shot calling over their destiny? Mm-hmm. Find that shit real fast. Because, I mean, listen, and I'm going to call myself guilty of this. I can out-woke the fuck out of somebody. I mean, I'll be woke as shit. I can woke your ass out, okay? Woke out. And a lot of that has to do with me being able to adeptly perceive and articulate problems. Okay? A lot of wokeness is being able to adeptly articulate and perceive problems and expound on that shit. When I've been held accountable to solutions, that's when I grew. You know what I mean? When somebody was like, solve the fucking problem, that's when I got bigger as a person and bigger as a leader. And so I need us to start thinking about, well, what the hell does freedom look like? I'm done out-woken niggas. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? So I don't disagree with you, but I also think that what you're painting is a fine line of meritocracy, right? And so, I mean, I think we have to recognize that.
Meritocracy in what way?
Huh?
Meritocracy in what way?
Well, you're saying it's what you do that allows you to have your success, right? So
No. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, what the fuck do I do? Like what do I do? You feel me? Like I'm a what's called a kinesthetic tactile learner. You feel me? I can't learn nothing unless I'm physically doing it with my hands. I got to do something, right? And so I'm like, okay, do we define Ethiopia as freedom? Never been conquered, never been colonized, right? Do we define, you know what I'm saying? Like, is the United States model of military dominance the model of freedom? What the fuck is the model of freedom? How did they get there? That's all I want to know.
Yeah, and I get that. I get that part of we don't have the target. We're not headed towards a clear target, right? So absolutely you have to head towards a clear target. I guess somewhere in there it sounded a lot, you know, when you're talking about like mindset and routines and habits and things of that sort, those are all things that I agree with them. But I also recognize that also there's a level of meritocracy that exists in that isn't a reality for us across the board because of the systems that exist, right? Okay. So, I mean, I don't know. You know, one of the things that I feel like I struggle with to try and circle back around to what Shay is saying, you know, what is it that we do want? What do we want to see in leadership? And I still want to preface this with something that I don't want to see in leadership.
See, that's the problem. We know we don't want it. But if we had somebody that said, I'm ready to be the leader that you guys are asking for. I'm ready because let's not get it wrong. There's a lot of amazing leaders that just have not made it to the pinnacle of an MLK, of a Martin, or a Malcolm X. But at the same time, these people are dead. So I think that's a different conversation too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of amazing leaders. They're just not nationally followed by the Black culture, but doing phenomenal things. But in those spaces when we're saying we're building up new leaders and we want to see someone take this leadership and they say, I want to be your leader, but I don't even know what you want from me because you're never going to get perfection. And if I have nothing to measure up to, I'm always going to fall short of. So what do we get them as a guideline? What do we say besides the values that we know we want to instill? What else is it that we're asking for?
So, well, yes. But let me circle that back around because part of what we're talking about today is around false prophets, right? And I think it's important that that is a part of the conversation. Absolutely. Is what do we do about these false prophets? And even then, how do we recognize what these people look like and what that appears to be inside of our communities, right? So even kind of coming back to what Lethal started off with, which I, can appreciate, like coming around kind of full circle to saying maybe we shouldn't, go in and attack these false prophets, right? And so to me, that's more of what do we do with them more so than how do we recognize them? Because I think it's important for us to recognize in terms of the Black culture, like to Shay's point, there's all these amazing leaders, right? But who is the Black community, as a culture honing in on? And when we hone in on Theo, sir.
Yeah.
You just gonna yawn all up in the camera like that.
She didn't like this. She was making a good point. She was like, wait,
right. I'm like, wait.
I'm sorry. I was just like, that was unconscious. I just did that shit.
Black, y'all.
Right. So just thinking about, what it looks like and how, I think from a cultural perspective, how damaging some of these prophets can actually be to getting us to move forward in any sense of one direction. Right. Yeah. And so you have a lot of dissent. And most importantly, the dissent is all internal. So when Theo talks about that internalized hatred, like it's real because you have people who have built platforms And quite a many of them do nothing with their platforms other than tear down other Black people. So they can talk about systems and they can call out systems, but the only time they get specific by name, intentional, show after show, post after post, podcast after podcast, they want to call it out on national television and all these things, is when it's turned internally towards our community.
That's real.
When we spend that type of time and that type of energy, what happens is that you have a lot of dissenters now saying they don't even know what voice to listen to in the Black community, because all we can do is focus in on whose platform is bigger than ours, who we think stole our idea, who we think is co-opting this, who we think is working on that. And so then we use the space and the platforms that we have in order to continue to tear each other down. This, for me, this is why I don't do the call out culture as much as there's some folks I could really call out, ways, but I don't feel like it's productive to how we move forward. So, you just take a little bit of heat and you got to keep on trucking, right? But how do we figure out inside of our communities how we really remove the voice of the platform? Or do we have to amplify? I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but the point is, if we're going to talk about false prophets and we're going to look at how do we get them out of that position of power or influence inside of the community, what's the answers? What do we do there?
So hold on, Theo. Let me.
Yeah.
Jice is making a good point, right? And I think that individual responsibility and individual accountability comes into play on that. Right. And it gets to that whole, if you all are familiar with this, the choice theory, the theory of choice, right? Mm-hmm. You have to choose to want to do better, to want to know better, to want to be better. That's a choice that you have to make, right? Because it's an indicator of your growth as an individual, right? And if you can get 10 individuals to do it, and then 20 individuals to do it, right? And they're moving towards an agreed upon standard, you understand what I'm saying, which we spoke about earlier, right? Then you can start to see momentum being gained to push out these false prophets, right? These false leaders, right? These egotistical individuals, right? These self-centered individuals, right? These individuals who have bought into the system of capitalism, right? And taken that desire to be the next Jay-Z or P. Diddy or whomever, yes, I'm saying, with riches and so-called fame and celebrity status, right? For their own personal gain, basically saying, screw the community, forget the people. I'm gonna put me and my needs first, right? They're selfish. Because it goes back to something we said in the first episode of the first season, right? Whenever capitalism is a part of the equation, you cannot rule out conspiracy and or corruption. And that's where it falls on us as individual Black people thinking about our 7-generation legacy to say, you know what? I'm going to have to accept the responsibility to hold these individuals accountable. And if we don't do that as individuals at the individual level, the unit level, you see what I'm saying? Then coming together as a people is not going to be accomplished, right? But at the end of the day, right, we have to have an agreement as a people that this is going to be a standard, right? Like, for example, right, for me, myself, right? If you are self-centered, hypocritical, egotistical, selfish, controlling, surrounded by yes type of people, whatever case it be, it doesn't fuck with you.
And you know what, you led me to my next point, Lethal, and I know we don't have that much longer, but I really want to talk about how important is it that we start to qualify people's network, because like you're saying, the people that are around you speak a lot of value to who you are. How important is it that we start to look at these people that we are saying are leaders and qualify their network around and qualify who's in your network and really start to make decisions based off of that?
That's very important, because you have to know, right, the fruits that the tree is bearing.
You took them words out of my mouth, God damn it.
Of course I did. You have to know this. You understand what I'm saying? If you have an individual out here who does not have, we're not looking for perfection, right? What we're looking for is results.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? And what we're looking for is a continuity between actions and words. That's
that
what
part.
you see what I'm saying? Continuity between actions and words, right? So if you're out here and you're talking the talk, but you're not walking the walk, then we should have a problem with you.
And that's
but I find that that's so
no. Let Theo go ahead. Jump in on that.
Yeah, I wanted to say it's very important. First of all, yes, like literally in time, the false prophets will actually expose themselves in time. And what you do is you'll see what they do with the trust that is lent unto them.
Yes.
You will fucking see it. You will see the return on the investment show up or not. See what I'm saying? And so therefore, it's almost more productive to let time do it than you do it. Because what happens is you participate in call out culture. If you be like, this person's a false ass prophet, right? Well, heat attract more energy than light sometimes. You feel me? So by the time you do that, see, this is the problem. See, a lot of this beef is on YouTube, and I figured this shit out, right? If you beef with the right person on YouTube, you will get AdSense dollars that'll flow your way because all these people be like, oh, he calls you out. And then the person goes to that page, and then like I've seen people elevate their stuff. This individual used to get about 25,000 views per download per stream. And then individual number one picked a beef with somebody who was much, much more popular. But I was hoping that much more popular person didn't say nothing, but that person said something because that person always say something. And next thing you know, individual who started the beef got 47,000 views every time. You know what I'm saying? 90,000 views every time. So literally the platform could incentivize the destructive behavior.
No, you're right, Theo.
But it's been destructive one way or another. I mean, so that's the latest platform in which you can be destructive, and which you may have a little bit more control over, the destruction or whatever. But it's the mentality of it. It's the same. It doesn't matter. I don't really feel like this is a real call out because they're too big to be worried about what we got going on over here. But, I mean, it's the same thing with like Al Sharpton. Like Al Sharpton, you can't, to me, time did not help Al Sharpton's situation. Instead, time allowed, because this is my thought, time allows for you to continue to make more and more connections and gain more credibility in the way that we see credibility. Because white ice is always colder. So the more times you've shown up on CNN, the more times you've shown up as a commentator here, the more times you get picked up by mainstream media. It doesn't automatically make you what that is, but mainstream media very much controls their narrative, right? So like,
we don't fuck with him like that though. Like, I'll be on it, yo. I mean, I'll wake up every morning and listen to Al Sharpton. Like people do with Malcolm X's podcast. You feel me? Like when you look at him on YouTube, he don't fuck with Sharpton like that. You know what I mean?
We don't. But you know what? We always like.
No, but we do. Like we may not.
We don't.
But we do. Absolutely, we do. I mean, you got a whole bunch of people who just went to Washington D.C. Coronavirus be damned under Al Sharpton's.
And I heard they had barbecue grills and was tutus, tata sliding.
I'm saying, like, we cannot discount that. When you think about the 44 million Black Americans, there's a whole lot of them that are not exposed to those who are here on this podcast or those who are listening to other people or other voices who are out there. And even as their platform grows, you get somebody, an Antonio Moore who can pull in 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, even a Tariq Nasheed who can pull in. I talk to Black people every day who don't know who Tariq Nasheed is. Everybody knows who Al Sharpton is. I mean,
the exposure, but the media.
Exactly. We talk about letting time, figure it out. Like what we have learned is over time, we saw, okay, Al Sharpton is really not for our community. But you would be hard pressed to convince my mother and my father that Al Sharpton is not for our community. You can't tell them because as far as they're concerned, he is a credible Black voice because he is on MSNBC and CNN and all these things, and he's leading this and he stands out there with these Black families. And he had all of the protests and all the marches to grieve with folks whose kids have been killed in the streets and da-da-da-da. And he can date himself all the way back to the civil rights movement because he marched with Dr. King and whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the more time that we allow to pass, the more credibility in certain cases, because the voices haven't spoken out and because we're not deading those situations and saying, this voice right here is not for our community. And we're not calling out the fact that these voices are internalized hatred and that they're continuing to tear down our community instead of tear down the system. Yeah. I don't care what nobody say. There's not a Tariq Nasheed, a Antonio Moore, a Michi X, a Jay Morrison. There's none of them who are going to do as much damage to the community by tearing each other down than we would if we collectively tore down the system. But instead, all of those major platforms go in and tear down each other instead of going in on the system. They don't want to call out specific systems.
That's real shit.
You're right.
They call out Black people who they feel like are doing harm to Black people when none of us could ever do as much harm to each other as the system can do to us collectively.
So how do you, so then how do you solve it? Because it's like, all right, if time don't do it, and if like you feel me, like we can't do that to Throne and knock them off of that, then our only option is to replace them.
I never professed to have the answer to the conundrum, right? But I think if we're gonna talk,
I want the answer.
I want the answer too,
now,
right?
None of us have the answer, but this is something that we do like to offer our audience, and it's called a mindset moment. Our goal here at 7 Generations Black is to offer you new perspectives from my amazing panel, and also to give you a chance to just maybe shift your mindset a little bit. And so today, as we talked about part 2 of the responsibility of leadership, false prophets, how do we recognize them? How do we counsel them out? What do we do? And how do we really create leadership that is beneficial for our entire Black community? I would love for each of you to give our audience a mindset shift, a mindset moment of what it really looks like from a 7-generational lens to address false prophets and the responsibility of leadership. Lethal, can you start us off, please?
Sure, I'll set the tone. I'm gonna go back to Brother Minister Malcolm X as an ancestor. And this is very important, right? And it gets to that whole choice and our individual ability to respond. He said, a wise person can play the part of a clown, but the clown cannot play the role of a smart person, of a wise person, right? So with that, I'll say this, something else he said. You cannot be so blind in your followership that you cannot face the realities of your leaders and leadership.
Well, geez.
That's a word right there.
That is. That's good.
Just process that. I asked our listeners and viewers to process that, because this is serious. Because the one organization that I am really pissed off with them and whatnot, because it's about responsibility, and you can lead people to losing their lives if you're not on point with your shit. You know what I'm saying? And when you start talking about getting guns involved, understand this. I am a big goddamn gun advocate. I own guns. I carry guns. I am licensed in 40 some odd states. Trust and believe. Your boy Lethal is always properly situated for any situation that anyone in or out want to bring to me. Understand that. So it's not about me being afraid of guns. I'm not one of those type of people. You understand what I'm saying? But I am the type that's going to say to you, if you're going to be about that life and you start talking about gunplay, you better and got to be on point.
That's good. Thank you for that, Lethal. Appreciate that word. Ms. Jice Johnson.
That was a good word right there.
That was a word.
So I would say that mine is, we have to open up our ears and listen to what the messaging is. If your messaging is only tearing down our communities and not attacking specifically and by name the systems, if you can only attack specifically and by name other Black people, ain't hearing you.
Yeah, you're a coward.
Ain't hearing you. We got to attack the right enemy. It's not each other. It doesn't matter. It's not each other.
That's good, because it makes me question those people a lot. That's really good. Thank you for that, Jice. Mr. Theo E.J. Wilson.
Yeah, I would say you got to know your outcome. You because if the profit isn't getting you to the outcome, it exposes them right there. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
Not even like, I suppose that I've done a lot of work on myself to make sure that I'm centered and accountable to my own behavior. And of course, I'm not all the way there yet. Nobody's a finished product. But what I will say is that when we look at leadership, we got to look at actions over words, and we got to start figuring out, we as a people need to define what freedom is, so we'll know which leaders to get behind or become those leaders ourselves. We can't blame a lot of folks for not knowing which direction to go in and leading folks wrongly if we as a people haven't figured out where we want to go and who we want to be. You see what I'm saying? That's why there's so much difference in religious background. You got Hebrews arguing with Hoteps, arguing with Moorish nation, arguing with Christians. You feel me, like that? Like, and there's a leader for all of them, you know? And it's like, okay, this is tribalism. And if you can't put down your tribalism to see the bigger picture, then you're obviously part of the problem. So we have to define what the outcome is. And whoever looks like they're taking us there, it'll be exposed whether that person is the right or wrong person in time.
Man, this is why you guys are 7 Generations Black. This panel is phenomenal. I just appreciate your insights, your perspectives, and being so authentic. One of my favorite things in the audience, you guys have been dope today. Your participation has been off the chain. We appreciate your engagement. One of the favorite things I see right here from our audience right now, bang on the system, not on each other. Yes, yes, yes. And the answer, again, is to support independent Black media. They have been controlling the narrative for far too long. It's time that we control our own narrative right here. If you haven't went to CTN Media on YouTube, check us out. We're changing the narrative. We're doing it with you, and we welcome new contributors and collaborators because it's about us coming together as a community. We can do so much more together. Remember, we have the Black Boss Summit coming up for all my entrepreneurs ready to take their game to the next level. It is this weekend, Saturday and Sunday at the blackbosssummit.com. It's a virtual experience. And remember, you can download it if you're not available this weekend. So go ahead and grab your virtual seat. Check out the website for more information. And my last words to you are, great leaders don't set out to be leaders. They set out to make a difference. It's never about the role, always about the goal. So let's make sure we have goals in mind, vision in mind, and make sure you know where you're going. Until next week, make sure you check out our other podcast. Go to CTN Media. We are 7 Generations Black. Remember, family, it's always peace and love, and keep hustling for your 7 Generations Black. We love you. Peace and love.
Peace.